Welcome everybody to our presentation and our webinar today on BYOD, is it your friend or foe, and how Celestix solutions for the enterprise can help you with your BYOD challenges. Today in our webinar, we'll talk about who we are as a company, Celestix. We'll talk about some of the challenges with bring your own device. We'll talk about our solutions for bring your own device, specifically around workplace join, work folders, and direct access, and give an overview of these various technologies. And we'll wrap it up with our summary and next steps, and then open up the bridge for question and answer time. If you have questions in the meantime, please feel free to use the questions bar in the GoToMeeting webinar in your system tray. And so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And once again, thank you everybody for joining. I'm going to be your presenter today. My name is Benjamin Derr, and I'm the Senior Sales Engineer for North America with Celestix Networks. I'm a Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, System Administrator, and Information Technology Professional. I have 19 years of industry experience with a specific focus on infrastructure and information security, and really around remote access and how do we manage our endpoints out there both on-premise and off-premise. Throughout my career, I've been involved with the United States Air Force. I've been involved in services consultancy, and now currently with Celestix. I've worked in all sorts of companies from 50 clients up to 500,000 clients. Celestix Networks as a company is based in Fremont, California in the Bay Area, and we have a global presence around the world with offices in the United Kingdom, in Singapore, China, and Japan. We've been in business since 1999, started really making appliances for RSA and a security platform, and from there have launched into the various Microsoft Remote Access products. For those of you on the bridge and for existing customers, I want to say thank you and welcome to our webinar. And you may have heard of our products. We specifically, for the past several years, have really focused a lot on our TMG, Unified Threat Management Platform, and our UAG for remote access. And last year, we branded and launched our products specifically more around the remote access platforms and federation platforms built on Server 2012 R2. We currently have 5,000 customers under active maintenance, and from a global alliances, we are Microsoft's largest security OEM provider for our appliance platform. So let's talk a little bit about your challenges with bring your own device and some of the challenges that are in your environment today. We know that bring your own device covers a lot of territory and concepts. When we think of bring your own device, we think obviously of users bringing iPads, iPhones, Android phones, tablets, Windows phones into the device, and obviously doing work functions on these devices. And obviously it brings us a lot of challenges. Some organizations are going a different model and giving their users the ability to purchase their own hardware devices. So instead of a company provisioning a laptop for you when you join, they are instead giving you a stipend to go and purchase your laptop. It is a corporate domain managed device, but it gives you that flexibility there. With BYOD, we obviously think of consumer devices, but it could just be a Windows device too as well. What we think of the traditional laptop environment running Windows 7 Enterprise or Windows 8 or soon to be Windows 10. These devices, as I'm sure you're aware, really present their own challenges from a manageability perspective, a legal perspective, HR perspective. Who owns the device? Who owns the content of the device? If it's company information, what do you do about securing it? Not only do customers bring their own device or the users bring their own device, they're actually bringing their own services too as well. With Android and Google, they've really tied a lot into their service stack. And when we think of some of the risks that are posed with that, I think of things like Google Drive. All right, so customers are using these services to synchronize their files. They're bringing their own photo sharing sites, their own document management software. Are they really also as well jailbreaking these devices? So what is really the endpoint security devices? As well as from a regular Windows environment or Mac OS environment, are these devices secured? If they're a home device, are their kids downloading games and software? Who knows? So the ultimate question for us as IT professionals is, how do we really enable our organization to be a service platform that our users will subscribe to? And therefore, we don't need to, by way of not providing services, enable a shadow IT platform. In other words, how do we swing users to use our own services and make them available for them so they don't use their own services? So from a kind of risk perspective, if we think about broadly the risks there and things that keep information security professionals up at night, what are some of the challenges there, things that we worry about? Obviously, number one is data leakage, data loss. We have devices, we have Dropbox-like services, obviously, OneDrive, Google Drive, Apple iDrive. How do we protect the content out there, or how do we enable our users to provide or have access to the content, but at the same time still be able to secure that content and ensure that, hey, when an employee is terminated, they no longer have access. Cloud-based file sync services is one of the big challenges out there right now. Organizations may be looking to limit internal access through proxy filtering or firewall rules, but users are going to get around that. They may port their documents home and then synchronize from there. What about employee terminations and the data residing on these personal devices? It's becoming a big mobile device management feature to segregate this content, but that's not going to take care of all the scenarios. How do we also differentiate between approved and unapproved devices? How many devices is a user allowed to have? If we give the user a device or assign them an iPhone, for example, how do we make sure that they're not using other devices with their corporate resources, for example, their own iPads? Should we be able to trust those devices is a big security concern. Even though the user may have a physical device, how do we ensure that it's not being jailbroken, that it's meeting basic management policy? If we're also letting users to use their own devices, we're opening it up for them, which is okay risk. Should we trust the devices and to what level? And can those devices affect the security of managed systems? These devices will be plugged into a corporate laptop at some point to do things like managing their music with iTunes or applications. If those devices have viruses on them or are infected, could they compromise the effect of managed domain clients? So in our discussion today, we're going to talk about the different technologies around BYOD and specifically the Microsoft and Celestix partnership and how we can help mitigate some of these risks for you. So let's take a look at some of our solutions there. We'll broadly break them down into 3 discrete categories. The first category is, how do I control access? So I know I have these devices in my environment. How do I really, have a comfort level that the user is coming from a device that is a known device and that really the user credentials have been compromised? So in other words, how can we use that device as potentially a factor of authentication? And the answer there is around Workplace Join. So Workplace Join is a component of Windows Server 2012 R2 and Microsoft Federation Services. And what it does is it works in conjunction with ADFS and by adjunct the web application proxy. And it's used to really leverage the device as a second factor. What happens in the process, the user will register the device in Active Directory, and applications can leverage these device attributes, and specifically the web application proxy role. The device is also provisioned at this time with a custom certificate profile, and it's used during the authentication method to properly identify the device. So in other words, an attacker can't necessarily lift the certificate and put it on another device. If an attacker is using their own device, for example, if they don't have this registration plus the certificate, they're not going to get access to the application. And as I mentioned, out of the box, web application proxy uses Workplace Join for deterministic access. And it can be global or per application access. And not only that, because the device is registered in Active Directory, as an application developer, you have the ability to read these attributes and use that in your own authentication for your own systems. So for example, if you have an application that you're developing, a web-based application, and you want to make sure only properly registered devices can access that, you can use that as part of that authorization attempt as well too. So with controlling access, Workplace Join really solves some of the gaps or bridges the gaps of, we have proliferation of devices, how can I ensure that only the trusted devices have access? Now obviously you'd like to use it in conjunction with a proper MDM solution to ensure the security device so they can work hand in hand there. The next area of concern, and broadly categorized, is how do we keep control of information? Obviously, we can do things around DLP, data loss prevention software. We can do file classification. We can do encryption of the files, especially around some of that information rights management, where we can tag documents, encrypt them, and assign certain usage rights and expiry times for these kind of documents. And that works well for software that has these capabilities, specifically Microsoft Office and rights management services. What about other types of content? What about other types of information? And then broadly speaking, how can we provide, again, that file synchronization platform for our users? So we know information is going to leave the perimeter at some degree. How do we enable a platform, in other words, to really try to keep some sort of control over this information? And the answer is what's called work folders. And if you haven't heard about it, it's a new role in Windows Server 2012 R2. and allows you to create in your own infrastructure this Dropbox-like or OneDrive-like scenario for your own user files. It's HTTPS-based, so all traffic is over SSL. Allows for multiple device synchronizations, and it integrates into the user file system, just like OneDrive. So users can selectively choose what they would like to synchronize to the other device. It helps to centralize your control over your company information, as in the files are stored in your data center. Or you can leverage Amazon or Azure infrastructure as a service to host these roles too as well. Encryption occurs when the data is in motion and at rest. So in other words, as files are synchronized, it's over an SSL TLS channel, and then when it's on the device, it's in an encrypted blob. Access to this encryption is terminated when the user account is terminated, or when you disable an Active Directory. So in other words, the user has to authenticate to the web, in our role, the web application proxy, and once the authentication is denied, the user will no longer have access to that data. It's very simple. Work folders helps to simplify your administration as well, because now you have the ability to back up and recover these files. It integrates with the existing Windows file service infrastructure. So if you're using things like file classification infrastructure to apply taxonomy to your files, if you're applying information rights management, if you're integrating with DLP, we'll integrate with all those various components and simply enable users to do the file sync as they need to. And lastly, it integrates with workplace join. And you can see how these technologies, even standalone, can work together. And with workplace join, we are obviously looking to limit access to registered devices. So users can't just synchronize to multiple devices if they so desire. It will only be to these pre-registered devices. So the last area of BYOD, and with BYOD, I mentioned, if you recall, talking a little bit about endpoint security and specifically laptop security. Users will still have a need for Windows-based laptops to a large degree, and the reasons are as varied as there are days in the year, and the sun is long. Great for creating content, thick applications, better experience for the end users, application support, and so on and so forth. What we look to do is how do we ensure the security of our endpoint, how do we have visibility of our endpoint, and still make sure that these systems are reporting information back to us into our own internal systems for things like antivirus, patch management, security status. How do we make sure they're configured per corporate standards? One of the things that when I talk with customers is concepts I try to bring along with specifically around direct access and connectivity is that we as IT professionals have done a great job of enabling remote access through reverse proxies, cloud-based service, software as a services, but then we lose visibility into the endpoint because our mobile forces, Salesforce, or mobile user base, they don't need to connect back to CorpNet. They don't need to tie back in and get things like Active Directory group policies because they don't have a need to, they don't want to. So from a connectivity standpoint and from a manageability standpoint, we look at direct access helping to fill that connection for these managed laptops that may be on the environment and are subject to BYOD plugins, if you will. Direct access is a solution from Microsoft. What it does is enables a bidirectional, seamless, and transparent tunnel for your systems. Plainly speaking, it's an always-on connection. Once the laptop is booted up and has a valid internet connection, the connection process starts automatically and seamlessly behind the scenes, so the user doesn't have to dial a connection. They don't have to click their little remote, enter their credentials, and connect. We do all that behind the scenes. What it does for you as an IT professional is it enables the better visibility into the endpoint. So for example, if a user were to plug in their BYOD device and it's compromised or has some virus on there or some malware, or there is a file that they're transferring from the machine onto their own desktop and it's flagged as a virus, you're going to get alerting about that because the antivirus engine is going to pick it up and it's going to generate an alert that you can now take action back in your own environment. And it may quarantine it, antivirus may do whatever it needs to do, but you'll get that remediation information. For non-direct access capable clients, things such as your tablets, your other BYOD devices, Android, dial on demand, per app demand access, things of that nature. Our solutions also do offer client-based VPN for your legacy connections or for those non-DA machines. It's your traditional VPN experience. There's a dialer associated. It's through an IPsec tunnel or layer 2 tunneling protocol. So the common standards, good security practice still apply here. So just kind of wrap it up a little bit. Our BYOD solutions, we really look at how can we better enable deterministic access or condition-based access. How do we enable a service platform for our users so they don't use shadow IT services or consumer-based services wherein our app data is outside our control, which is a kind of a scary thing. And how do we provide remote access for BYOD and for our managed systems in one platform? And the answer really is around our edge solutions and our federation solutions. For access management for web applications, we want you to look at how do we do condition-based application authentication. So how do we use that device as a factor of authentication specifically? And how do we limit access to only approved devices? And there may be applications where we only want to do it on a per-app basis, and we can definitely work in both models there. The second area, again, is how do we provide file synchronization? We live in a mobile world. Users want their documents on their devices, and that's okay. But how do we provide that service for our end users and our customers? And the answer there is the work folders access through Microsoft technology. And then lastly is bring it all together. How do we enable just pure network remote access? There's going to be a need for it. And how do we provide that? And the answer is through our cloud edge, through direct access, and traditional client-based VPN. So kind of wrap up in a summary. BYOD, we know, brings challenges and sleepless nights, especially if you are charged with information security and protecting your company's information. We want to help you reduce your information leakage and loss, especially around the case of terminated employees. Once they leave, they have access to data. It's just going to happen. And how do we improve our endpoint management and security? We want you to help enable better service for users, enhance your security, and reduce user pain. Often there is a push and pull between security and end-user functionality. We're all aware of the fine line that we need to walk. With our solutions, I think we can help you manage both effectively and help you take back control at the end. And as an organization, a service provider, we are one call for implementation support needs. So we do offer support for all our products, also professional services for implementation and ongoing activities, and pre-deployment support. So I encourage you to visit our website. We do offer deep dives for specific topics, so if you want to drill into more technical discussions, we are here for you. We have a no-cost evaluation program for our solutions, so you can definitely try before you buy in your own data center, and then we'll help you through that proof of concept system. So at this point, I would like to open up for any questions from the audience, and thank you for attending our presentation today, and have a great day.